This is happening right now in your own neighborhood. You're standing at the end of your driveway with your coffee, waiting for your kids to climb up those big steps into the yellow school bus. The stop arm swings out, the red lights start flashing, and for a split second, you feel a little bit safer. There's a camera on that bus, and the whole point of it is, or at least the point we're sold, is to catch the idiot who blows past while your children are loading and unloading from the bus. Well, that's the story. Protect the kids. Hold bad drivers accountable. Simple. Reasonable. Hard to argue with that. But that story has taken an evil turn that almost nobody saw coming. Leaked internal documents from Bus Patrol show they're not stopping at just catching illegal passers anymore. The company has already installed stop arm cameras on more than 40,000 school buses across 24 states. They have signed agreements to go to the next step. They want to turn those buses into rolling automatic license plate readers. If you've been following my reporting on FLAC cameras, you'd know these license plate readers don't just do that. They capture much, much more. Before I break this down, I want to remind you to like, subscribe, and click that little bell for notifications so you don't miss anything. There is a lot of information coming out on this mass surveillance. These cameras also catch you in your bathrobe, your car in the garage, and your home. Every single car the bus drives past gets its plate logged, and that includes when it stops at your home or on your street. This along with the exact time and GPS location. That data gets fed into law enforcement databases and their partners, like the company Axon that already powers searchable police systems across the country. All of this is stored in those data centers everyone's been talking about. The school bus doesn't just see the guy who sped past the bus when its stop arm was out. It sees your car pulling out of the driveway at 7:42 a.m. It sees your neighbor's car heading to work. It sees the rideshare dropping someone off a block away. It sees the delivery truck making its rounds. It sees cars parked in the apartment complex. And it does this twice a day, 5 days a week, on routes that already cover almost every neighborhood in America. This isn't a small pilot on one bus in one town. The documents show the ambition has grown from a single test bus to a 100-bus rollout and now reportedly targets 40,000 buses. That would make it the largest ALPR network operating anywhere in the United States. And there's more to come if we don't push back. But why is this important? Why should you care? You don't do anything wrong. We were told this was about child safety. What we're actually getting is the largest rolling surveillance network Americans never voted for, never debated in public, and never consented to. And the federal government, municipalities, and tech companies are building it on the backs of one vehicle that almost every parent trusts with their children every single morning. That's not protecting kids. That's using kids as a perfect, indisputable cover story to put cameras on wheels in every neighborhood in the country. And once those cameras are running continuously, instead of just when someone breaks the law, the data never stops flowing. Last week, we covered some of the catastrophic failures of this Big Brother system and how bad the tracking can be in real-world situations. And you can check that out right here. Bus Patrol didn't start out looking like a surveillance company. They came to school districts with a pitch that was almost impossible to say no to. We'll put cameras on buses to catch drivers who illegally pass when the stop arm is extended and kids are getting on and off the bus, they said. This is a real safety problem. We agreed. Children have been injured and killed in these incidences, and at least 30 states have passed laws allowing automated enforcement on school buses for this exact reason. The original system was designed to trigger only when a violation happened. The camera would record the bad driver, the company would review the footage, and they would submit it to local law enforcement for final approval and ticketing. That was the deal everyone agreed to. Narrow, specific, and sold on protecting our children. But according to the leaked internal documents, the company isn't satisfied with just catching the occasional violator anymore. They want the cameras running continuously as the bus travels the entire daily route. Every license plate it sees gets captured with a timestamp and GPS coordinates. That information gets shared with law enforcement platforms. The hardware is already paid for by school districts and taxpayers. The routes already exist and already cover vast areas. The only thing changing is the software, from record only when someone breaks the law to scan and log everything we drive past all day long. They knew this expansion would be controversial. The documents reportedly show internal concerns about how federal agencies, insurance companies, and others might use this data to monitor your community. And It's an income stream, another way to make big money. They decided to move forward, betting that wrapping the whole thing in child safety language would make any public backlash manageable, keeping this all on the down low. This is how these programs always grow. You start with something almost everyone can agree on: stopping drivers from endangering children at bus stops. You install the cameras under the narrow sympathetic purpose. Public resistance fades because who wants to argue against protecting kids? Then once the infrastructure exists, the data has real value. Someone decides it would be more efficient to use it for broader purposes. Efficiency is the word they always reach for when they're expanding surveillance, not to mention the money side. And it's not stopping with school buses. The exact same logic is already being applied to other public vehicles. Garbage trucks in places like Dallas, Texas, and Stockton, California are looking at using AI-powered cameras that scan yards and homes for what they're calling code violations, while the trucks slowly drive past every single home. The justification? The trucks already know your address and pickup schedule. Why not have them collect a little more information while they're already there? They're claiming this is for code enforcement. Sure it is, because once you accept the principle that public vehicles can become mobile data collectors, the list of what they can collect never stops growing. It just keeps expanding under the next convenient justification. This is part of a much larger pattern that has been building for years: the slow, steady expansion of surveillance infrastructure across America, one good cause at a time. Flock safety cameras started as simple license plate readers mounted on poles. Now there are more than 90,000 of them across more than 4,000 cities in over 40 states. They don't just read plates anymore. They build detailed vehicle fingerprints on you. That captures make, model, color, decals, bumper stickers, and other visual markers. They run something called convoy analysis that flags cars frequently traveling together. Your freedom of association, who you drive with or park near, is now being algorithmically evaluated and potentially flagged for law enforcement review or other information collecting. Private companies are getting into the game too. FedEx has partnered with Flock Safety, sharing camera feeds from its distribution facilities and its vehicles with police while gaining access to police surveillance networks in return. Other major corporations are doing the same thing. They get the benefits of their surveillance network without being subject to the same transparency rules that apply to government agencies. Forget your Fourth Amendment rights. No one's talking about that at all. Then there are gun or firearms detection AI systems being layered onto existing cameras in schools and public spaces. Companies like Zero Eyes and Volt claim these tools can spot firearms and alert authorities faster than humans. But gun rights groups are raising obvious and disturbing questions. What happens when a legal gun owner draws a firearm in a legitimate self-defense situation, or simply bends over while carrying a concealed weapon? False positives, racial profiling risks, and the erosion of the presumption of innocence becomes very real problems when algorithms start deciding who gets reported to the police. Now forget your Second Amendment rights too. The pattern is always identical. Start narrow, install the hardware under a sympathetic justification, expand the mission once the cameras and the data pipelines are already in place, use public safety, child protection, and efficiency as the justification every single time the scope grows. We've seen this movie before with other surveillance programs. They almost never stay limited to the original purpose. The data becomes too valuable. The partnerships become too convenient. And anyone who questions the expansion is told they don't care about children or safety or stopping crime. That's obviously not true. Real-world examples of ALPR or license plate readers have been misused, and this proves a risk that is not theoretical. Officers have used these systems to stalk romantic partners. One Milwaukee officer ran a woman's plate 179 times over 2 months. An Idaho sheriff tracked his wife's vehicle more than 700 times in 3 months. A Georgia police chief was arrested for misusing ALPR data to stalk and harass private citizens who were not involved in any criminal investigation. These cases were not caught by the system itself. The victims reported this as something wrong and reported it. Now imagine the same capability scaled over 40,000 school buses driving through every single neighborhood twice a day. The potential for abuse doesn't magically disappear because the vehicle is painted yellow and carries children to school. If you follow the money, the Protect the Children framing starts looking A little more like a very smart business growth strategy. Bus Patrol gets to dramatically expand its revenue. What began as a stop arm enforcement ticket revenue becomes continuous data collection that can be shared or monetized with law enforcement agencies or anyone else who wants to buy it. More data means more contracts, more partnerships, and more reoccurring revenue streams that didn't exist under the original narrow purpose. Flock Safety has raised hundreds of millions in venture capital and built a multi-billion-dollar valuation by selling surveillance hardware and data access to both police departments and private companies. Every new platform they add, school buses, garbage trucks, corporate facilities, makes their network more powerful and more valuable to the next customer. Axon benefits as more data flows into the platform that police departments already use every single day. Private companies like FedEx gain access to police surveillance feeds while contributing their own data in return. There are other companies involved as well, not just the two I mentioned here. Local governments get to claim they're improving safety and efficiency without having to build expensive new fixed infrastructure from scratch. The buses and the routes already exist, and they're already paid for. They just change the software settings and call it progress. Politicians say they're heroes for making us all safer and bringing new revenue into the town or city, but they're being tricked or blindsided or worse, into surveilling themselves and everyone around them. They are the fools. The people who actually pay the price are the taxpayers who funded the original safety cameras and the ordinary citizens whose daily movements are now being logged without their knowledge or consent. This is how surveillance becomes self-perpetuating. Once the hardware is in place and the data has commercial and governmental value, the mission never stops expanding under the next convenient justification. You should care about this because it directly affects you, your car, your neighborhood, your daily movements, and your privacy, whether you have kids on a school bus or not. They got you on camera and using the data to control you. Every time a school bus drives past your house, your car in the driveway, or your workplace, your license plate, location, and exact timestamp can be recorded and stored in a database. There is no requirement for probable cause. There is no warrant, and there's no notification that you've been logged. This happens passively, continuously, as the bus simply drives down its normal route. This is your neighborhood. These are your streets. These are your buses that carry your children or neighbors' children. And now they're being turned into informants that log every vehicle they pass without asking anyone's permission. And the company benefits with increased profits too. The Fourth Amendment was written precisely to protect against this kind of general, warrantless collection of information on law-abiding citizens. Yet here we are, building what could become the largest mobile ALPR network in the country by repurposing vehicles that parents trust with their kids every morning. Your movements, your associations, your daily patterns are becoming searchable database information that can be accessed later. Once that data exists, it can be used for purposes far beyond stopping illegal bus passing, law enforcement code compliance checks, or simply routine searches with no individualized suspicion required. This is the opposite of how a free society is supposed to function. We are supposed to be secure in our persons, our houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable search and seizures. Turning public school buses into rolling data collectors flips the fundamental principle on its head and tries to sell it back to us as child safety. The first and most important step is demanding real transparency. School districts and local governments must be forced to disclose exactly what these systems collect and how long the data is retained and who has access to it and what safeguards actually exist against misuse. Right now, much of that information hides behind proprietary vendor contracts that the public is not allowed to see. Who is securing this information? If it's anything like traffic cameras, the answer is no one. Parents and taxpayers need to show up at school board meetings and city council sessions and push back hard against any expansion beyond the original stop arm enforcement purpose. If the cameras were sold to the public as child protection tools, they should remain strictly limited to that function. Continuously scanning and automatic data sharing with law enforcement databases was never part of the public debate or vote when these systems were first installed. We were lied to. Support state and federal legislation that requires warrants for most of this ALPR data access. Lock down the access, strictly limit data retention periods, and mandates regular public reporting on how these systems are actually being used. We know this works. The same kind of citizen pressure that successfully paused garbage truck camera plans in Cape Coral, Florida, can work here too, when enough people show up and speak out. Tools like dflock.org already exist to help map and challenge these growing surveillance networks. Use them. Share what you learn with your neighbors. The more people that understand that child safety is being used as the entry point for much broader surveillance, the harder it becomes for those programs to expand quietly behind the scenes. Here's the bigger question that keeps getting dodged in every one of these debates. When did protecting children become the acceptable excuse for turning public vehicles into rolling surveillance grid that tracks every American who happens to drive near them? Child safety is important. And so is the principle that government doesn't get to build mass surveillance networks on the backs of programs that the public never consented to. Once that line gets crossed under the banner of protecting kids, it becomes almost impossible to draw any line at all. That's the conversation we need to force, loudly and publicly, before the next school year's buses roll out with new software from SignalTrace that's collecting all of your Bluetooth device data and are running that data already flowing into databases and data centers that most Americans will never even know exists. Many of these surveillance technologies in the U.S. are deployed under existing laws that were written well before modern AI, cloud computing, and mass data collection even existed. As a result, oversight is often fragmented, inconsistent, or left to local policies rather than comprehensive federal law. We can take back our freedom of movement. It's up to us.